Hi, team. Morning. Okay. So let's start with the things. Today's topic is Docker and what does Docker actually solves the problem, or what is the motivation that Docker was designed to solve any problem. Okay. So let's go to little basics of how the project is actually created, how the whole life cycle and other things. Not going very much detail, but yeah. So you have a repository. This repository is created by the DevOps guy and given access to the developer one who creates his own branch. Okay, developer one, and other developer he creates his own branch with the naming convention. This is a developer two, and maybe they are working on the front end or the back end. So let's take an example of the back end itself. They are using Java, Spring Boot, and RESTful microservices way. They are assigned with tickets. They are working on the agile concept, so they are assigned with the tickets. These tickets contain description and the timeline, so that they can actually complete the code with all the acceptance criteria. Okay, so when they start, they first need in their own local, they need to set up the tools, the compiler. So IntelliJ, as the compiler, they would be working in the local, testing in the local, and then pushing the code, raising the PR. First, they will push it to the branch, and then from the branch, they will raise the PR to the repository. So this is the main repository, and each and every developer, they just created the branch, started working in their local. Think that here any tool. I'll take this example of IntelliJ, or the front end guys who are working on the JavaScript VS Code as the tool. So I'll just take it example as the tool. This developer has tested in his local, pushing it to the branch, creating a PR, which will once the PR is actually reviewed and it is actually merged by the help of any architect or a senior developer who is assigned with the responsibility of reviewing this PR. So I'm just stating the working, how it works in the project, or maybe a back end, front end, or the full stack scenario. Okay, so after this, what would happen is it will go to any build server, maybe Travis or Jenkins. Here it will check many of the rules what you have set. Okay, just like if your code is along with the unit test cases or not, if this unit test cases, the number of lines are covered or not, maybe if you have set the bar as 90% test coverage, the naming convention. So one of the other rule you have set it that the naming convention should be pure Java naming standards. Your variables, your function names, and your class name, your packaging name, all this belongs to the your project naming conventions. So all the other rules which are set in this build survey takes care about the build. So I take an example here with a Java side. There's a Spring Boot Maven application. What does the tool and the Maven as a dependency does is that whatever the code that you are using, whatever dependencies that you are using, it is just connecting to any repository in the open internet, or maybe if you're working in MNC, it will, you'll have your own repository. So any server that will have the dependencies like the web, the security, Spring security, other dependencies will be loaded here. You will take care that you define it in your POM, or maybe a normal Java code. You will define all the imports. So these dependencies have different versions also, right? The same dependency, if you take Spring security or maybe just an XYZ as a dependency, will have the version like 2. It started with version 1, 2, 3, 3.36, 4.6 in this way. So think that the developer himself is using Windows operating system here. They both are working on the backend itself, but one developer is having Windows, another developer is having Macintosh as a operating system, Mac, and he's using an IntelliJ tool or any tool to compile the code and test it in the local. Maybe he's using a version of 2, and this other developer he's working on Macintosh, and the tool is Mac specific, and the version here he's using the tool version is 3. Okay, Also at the other level, at the code level, the dependencies, the import, what Maven they have specified in their POM file, these dependencies are little bit different. Okay, maybe only 40% is same, and the other 60% is little bit different on the code level, tool level, dependency level. Now they push their own code. They have successfully tested it. Make sure they have written the unit test cases. Coverage is also good. Everything is green, fine. They just push the code to the branch, and from there they raise the PR. This guy is working on the chat application. This on the same web application, and on this guy is working on the video format and other maybe think as other feature is working, or other two different tickets they are working, home page, home backend service, or microservice of the contact us page. So I'm just taking an example. Everybody in this development environment, each of the developer are working on two different things and having their own different versions of the tool. Okay, maybe 40% they are using the same things here. So they push the code, it is merged, and from here automatically this Jenkins server is said that it takes up the code whenever there is a merge happening. This PR is approved and the merge is happening. His code and the developer two code is merged. Okay, so the Jenkins will take it and it will then deploy it on a server dev. Here the testers who will get the access with the help of the DevOps. Maybe this development server is maybe on-prem server or cloud server. Okay, maybe AWS GCP. So one example that I can get, if it is an on-prem server and a Windows Server 2008 R2. Okay, Windows Server 2008 R2 or any Linux server we are using to actually host and run our web application or any application as per our project that we are working. So on this development server, when the tester actually tests the web application, okay, we'll take the example of web application here. He is not finding it. He has raised many bugs. Okay, he has raised other tickets stating it as a bug, or maybe he just stated that the whole system is not working or is as per, but the developers state that it was working in my local, but it's not working in the server. This is the main issue that you will face working in any project, maybe a web application or any other application. It's working in my local, but not working when we are deploying it on the development. Okay, so what happens after the development testing? Think that in a happy scenario, the testers have tested it and given a green signal that it is the stage development, it's working fine, all the features. Now this Jenkins will make sure that it is now deployed on the regression, and the testers will test it in their way in the regression testing, SIT, UAT. Then it is then sent to the prod. So each and every level of development regression, you will find that there are some things behaving very differently, and it's working fine in the local. You can take this. You have taken the screenshots and given the demo to the client from the local. Okay, but once you deploy it, because on any of the server which is working maybe on the Windows, Linux, it could be an on-prem, it could be an cloud server, right? So there you see that there is some differences happening, there is some lag, or there is any issue that raised by the tester, and the developers just state that it was working fine in my local and but not working in my in the server when it is deployed. There is an issue at the server side only. The dependencies are showing in very different way. Okay, so this is the issue, and let's see in our next video how what is Docker and how Docker actually solves one of this issue. This is one of the issue that Docker solves. What are the other things? How the Docker works? How easy it is to install the Docker in and run it with a whole scenario. So uh, other example, if I take, once you're just getting started, I'm coming from the scratch again. Once you get started, you have a client requirement that it should be a web application which contains a chat feature and a video KYC feature. So you'll hire the developers, they will ask them to install tools, right? During the installation, if it is a startup, they might directly take 1 or 2 days, and You will directly start being productive from the day one itself. You will directly install these tools from the open internet. But if it is an MNC, you would raise a ticket. Yeah, the ticket will be approved by your different managers, wherever, whichever department this ticket is transferred to. Then you get a tool, and probably this tool, some second version of tool is actually installed in your laptop, because of some reason, because of any reason, you are only getting second version of the tool, and other developers are getting the third version of the tool. It can happen in an MNC, or it can happen in even some of the mid-level companies, that somebody is using a virtualized server, somebody is using a VDI, or somebody is using a direct laptop to install. There, somebody is not raising a ticket; they are directly installing it in from the open internet. Or due to a strict rule in an MNC, any tool has to be installed only by raising a ticket from their app store. And the other department will make sure that this tool, they take the control. You won't have the admin rights. They will install it and close the ticket once the ticket is assigned to them in the IT department backend. Okay. Or the second thing is that if you have any artifacts, repositories that you need to download in startup, you can directly, like if there is no security concern, you can directly download it from an open internet and run some checks and other things, make sure it is secured. Okay, but in an MNC, you would have a dedicated server which will have the dependencies. And due to any reason, if you're getting those dependencies, maybe in the Spring Boot, Maven, while taking the dependencies, or at the front end VS Code, Node NPM dependencies is taking a different version. So the developer is taking one version, another developer is taking another version, and also at the local operating system level, it will not have much it will not create much issues, because if this developer is using Windows, right? So he will have this IntelliJ tool or VS Code if he's working on the front end. If he's working on the back end, Java, he'll be using STS, IntelliJ, or Eclipse Enterprise Edition, and he will be okay to use it. Start writing his code, test it in local, and then send it. But if this guy is using Macintosh, he will install maybe IntelliJ, Eclipse, or VS Code of the Macintosh version, right? So this factor, I believe personally, won't create much issue, but the factors like the Maven and the repository, and due to some reason your other developer is getting the version of 3, and because some reason he is using a virtual box, or maybe he's connecting to any other system, and then through proxy is connecting to that server, so he's getting only second version of it. Okay, so due to some reason, there are many actually, so they push the code to the main. From the main, it goes to the Jenkins, the build server, and from there it goes to the development server. Here here directly, it is a mail comes from your manager saying that okay, the testers have directly stated it's not working in the development. What are you guys doing? Have you not tested in the local? Please test it in the local with all the unit test cases coverage, and then push the code up till the morning, till the evening. If you're not on night shift, till 6 p.m., you should actually close this task, and it should be on the development server. Then you just say that okay, it is working in my local. What are the other things I need to change? It's can you please check with the DevOps, or can you please check with the server engineer? Okay, or maybe a person who is actually deployed to check what the logs are. Okay, so this is the main, and one of the point that Docker came into picture, that working. So in the next video, we'll see what is Docker, how to install the Docker, how to create the images and container, and the other hands-on with the Docker. Thank you.